Okay, so I suppose we have started. Let me check. I can see. Oh, yeah, I see. We are live now. Whoop.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. So let's wait some minutes, okay, some seconds, because we had got more than 300 registrations for this event tonight. So we'll see how many people will be able to join us online. It's pleasant to hear and to see so many visitors and guests. Let me just start a little bit with the introduction. Tonight, we're going to speak about QA. It's our dxTechTalk educational event from the Experts company. My name is Marina Kaupanen, and I will be the host tonight. I am happy to just notice one fact today that it's been 6 years or even more. We've been hosting such events offline and online in different countries and different cities. And usually QA topics are among the most popular ones. So it's something pleasant to know. And you can follow us on social media, the Experts team, and you can join our events offline if you are in Porto, in Sofia, in Georgia, Tbilisi, or even in Turkey, Istanbul. Sometimes we also have our events there. But also join us in online mode. It's always a pleasure to have a lot of visitors and watchers. And okay, 3 minutes already. 95 people watching us now. Okay. And I already have here with me Polina Sergeyeva, and I would ask Anastasia, please switch on camera. Hello.
Hi.
So tonight we're gonna talk about QA, and we have two brilliant specialists in this area. And we will start with Palina. Palina is a QA engineer at DevExperts with more than 10 years of experience. And Palina will speak about the name of the talk is Should I Test or Should I Not? So it's something inspired by The Clash, I suppose. So I want to even sing the title of your
You should.
presentation. Okay, should I test or should I not?
Thanks.
Okay,
Thanks a lot.
more or less. Okay. Testing strategy for refactored code. And so, Palina, how are you today? Are you ready to present?
Of course. I am waiting for this moment.
Okay, where are you now? Where are you now, right now?
Right now, I am in Sofia in Bulgaria.
Oh, nice to meet. Nice to
Enjoying
know.
summer, still summer, and the sun.
Nice to hear it. And okay, 5 minutes to 5 in Portugal, and I suppose we can start. So, good luck to you, Palina. The stage is yours, and we with Nastya will be around.
Thank you. Just a moment, I will share. I hope what I need to share. And we will start. Okay. Today, I would like to raise such a mysterious topic as a testing of refactored code. And let's go directly to the topic through a couple of words about me. I've been working in QA for 10 years in fintech field, going from intern to the QI team lead. And now I'm focusing on refactoring tasks. What we discussed today, what is refactoring and why we do this, some existing testing approaches, working algorithm, how to work with such kind of tickets, and also I prepared a couple examples. And let's start. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage the typical list of refactoring tickets. Yeah, and every time it's shocking for me when I read at first this extend API or reduce class path. I can't understand how these weird words connect to me. And if you ask how might you check these changes, in most of cases you hear something like just check that nothing has been broken, and you have to live with it and cope with it. It's from our QA point of view. From developer point of view, it has more order. As we remember, refactoring is changing code without changing functionality. So after refactoring, code supposed to be more clean, more efficient. It's easy to maintain and understand, and it's easy to debug. So it sounds like a real cool thing about for any product. Do we have any problems here? Actually, yes. In spite of having no changes in the functionality, we could have some hesitations. Should we test it? Uh, no changes in functionality. Maybe we don't need to test it, or we have to test it. But since we have to evaluate the product and check that it still meets the requirement, we have to test it. And here we have a lot of options, starting from no testing approach, or sometimes developers tell that they can do all checks for refactoring code. And this very moment, lazy QA inside of me have additional portion of wine. But unfortunately, we have to go to another extreme where we have full regression testing with focusing on performance and security. I like neither first approach, no testing approach, nor the second approach. And let's start from the minimalistic approach and check what problems we could have here. First of all, of course, we without testing, we skip functionality testing. But actually, it's not the worst thing here. As you remember, QA works with risks, and here we skip any kind of work with risk. We don't create. We don't do risk assessment, don't create risk coverage or mitigation strategy, no contingency plans, nothing. But full regress approach also has problems. For example, test coverage. If we take reworked code and test it with old regression test, we have blind zones, untested zones that has high likelihood of appearance defects. And this is our current problems. Still using outdated test documentation for our further checks, we have problems for our future. Also here in full regress, we have possibly unreasonable expensive testing. For example, in my current project, we have 20,000 tests for regression tests. And usually we use only 2,000 for our regular sanity release checks. So in positive scenario, we have these tests multiplied by time for execution, and we have 300 hours per one ticket. But in reality, we have 20,000 of tests, and we have 20 working months to test only one refactoring ticket, and it sounds like a problem indeed. So what we have for current moment, we have refactoring ticket, and we don't know what is done under this ticket, and we have no silver bullet approach how to test it. So let's apply logic here and create some working actions how to live with this refactoring ticket. And first step would be context clarifying. First intention when we meet this such kind of ticket to read it, and the main point here to translate to human language. You remember my first slide, extend API, small improvements. It's written in developer language, and we have to translate to any human language. To do this, we have to ask questions to the developer, to business analyst, to project manager. Any source would be great. We have to understand what was done, how it was done, affected zones and functionality, and any other questions that we need for the beginning. Interesting question is a refactoring goal and very rarely asked question, but it helps us to reflect risky areas, to highlight key points, and to define what is the best way how to check changes. Have you ever asked the question? Sometimes answers are great. For example, the changes were done because of to-do comment in the code that was left 20 years ago. And if the tester wants to go deep in the functionality, he could ask authors of the code. Needless to say that everyone from the list has dismissed label beside the name. So for the first step, we have solid understanding of what was done, how it was done, and why it was done. Then we could move further to risk assessment, to step number 2. Here we have to assess our changes with likelihood and impact. With two these measurements. For likelihood, we have our control question like what is the probability that changed code has been broken, and for the second one, how crucial would be unworked functionality. To understand these measurements, we have an example. For example, we have two refactoring tickets. First ticket is minor order processing changes for trading application, and the second one, logs were refactored. So let's check every case. For the first one, we read that it's minor changes. Of course, we have to check, are they really minor? Because it could be minor for developer, but for QA, they're huge. But for example, we agreed that it's small improvements, but also we have order processing changes. For trading application, it's basic functionality. So in this case, we have high risky fix. For the second one, we have logs were refactored, and first thoughts that it's a huge improvements for our logs system. But we see in context that we refactored only part of these logs that used for clicks analysis. So in this case, we have small improvements, and as these logs are used only for clicks analysis and not as we QA use it for everyday life, like our eyes. It's secondary functionality. In this case, we won't have such a priority issue. After these measurements, we could proceed with step number 3, risk coverage, where we have to understand how we could check changes that we defined on the first step with the priorities that we defined on the second step. It's not mandatory, but I suppose using RC mnemonic that usually used for regression testing, and every letter in this mnemonic shows us a zone to be focused on while in process of testing. And every letter in this mnemonic could be used for our refactoring ticket as well. So let's go through these letters. First, R is repaired code. Means to check code that was changed under the, for example, refactoring ticket. Uh, Chronic. C, chronic zones. Everybody knows that every application has some chronic zones that usually provide some problems. Let's check it. Risky areas. Also, we have to check areas that pose more risk than others. Core functionality. Here we could ask ourselves what is the primary function for our application and check this function. Next R is recent changes, not only changes that were done under the refactored ticket, but also all recent changes that could connect to our zone. And the last one, the last C is configuration dependencies. Here we could check areas that are dependent on environment and also think about tests for production after it goes live. This step we finalize with a test scenario. We could create any form that you prefer. Checklist, test run, every form would work here. And proceed to the next step, the easiest step, just test it. Just take this test scenario and go through all steps that we defined there. So our list of actions would be clarify the context, analyze risks, create test coverage, and implement test phase. Let's check how it could be applied for real tickets that we have in real life. And first ticket is tool update, switch liquid-based tool to best file creator. Even now, I'm a little bit shocked to see these words going together to make my life and your life easier. Let's proceed with our actions. We have to understand the context. To understand the context, we ask questions, and we could um, ask any question that we come up with. For me, it would be what is best file creator, what does mention script do, what does it affect, why we move it, and to go further, we have to find answers to each question. For example, what is best file creator? In real life, I went to DevOps and asked them, and it became as a tool for run script. This script is a wrapper for database lines, and it is used for working with patched versions. Why we move it? I opened Epic for this ticket and saw 30 more or less the same tickets with tools that were migrated. So I understand that we want to switch to this new best file creator tool, and alongside with this tool, we have to move our scripts to new location. Okay, to analyze the risk, I have to understand the following items. I still not sure in script action how it works and can't formulate affected area. And this blocks me from assess our risk level. Um, you could solve these unknown items in different different ways. For example, I have a possible solution here, the following possible solutions. To define script action, you could find the script description, test case, or related tickets. You could check usage for the script. You could go and talk with the ticket developer. The good news here is that these answers would be an answer to our next question about affected area that would explain our affected area. And here we just need to articulate precisely what could be affected by this script. To evaluate risk level, in this particular case, we create a table with all gathered info with frequency of usage and priority. It was um, done collaboratively with QA developers and product manager, but any other options are welcomed here as well. Then we have to create test coverage, and here I suggest returning to our RC mnemonic and to focus on the last C, because it's really what we need here. We change configuration. We had our scripts in one location, and then we changed the directory and have to check that they work now like they worked previously from the previous location. And comparing output from the previous location and new location, we could proceed the test phase, and the ticket is passed now, and it would be score 1 for QA team. Let's proceed with the most typical example of refactoring ticket. Improve record creator part 2, replace class with listener for message record. Again, let's start with the questions because I can't move further without understanding and answers. And here we clarify everything that we could clarify. As I see from summary and description, we as a QA have to check here some messages. Okay, let's take it as it is right now and go and find answers to each of these questions. Also here we have nice keynote that developers sometimes post to help us. And in first keynote, we see that the developer wants me to check the component start and check errors and exception for the component. In the second keynote, it is set to check messages again. So we have to let's go and ask the developer what exact messages should be checked. He clarified the messages and understand that it's typical info messages in user interfaces that have good test coverage in our test documentation. So we could move to the second step, to risk assessment. As I told, it's a clear um, well documented area, so I'm safe here, and it's not a very risky fix. We have to create test coverage, and we've already mentioned all steps. Let's list them. Check server component starts, check this component for errors and exceptions, and check messages in all GUIs that we have. Let's go through each of these steps and test the ticket, and it would be a happy end for one more refactoring ticket. But sometimes we have some kind of opposite situation. For example, this ticket, unneeded lines in server Gradle files. what we need to check here. We have to understand what is written in this ticket. Where could we get the additional info? And what is Gradle? I don't know what is Gradle, so it was my question. But you see that what is it is too general question. Nobody likes such questions, and it need to be specified. But where we could get the info to specify this? For example, we could go, we could open pull request, and here we see that only unit tests and build Gradle files were changed. I know what is unit test, but I don't know what is Gradle. But the first search on the internet shows me that the Gradle is a build automation tool for run builds. Okay, how could I analyze the risk here? We have two focusing areas in this ticket: unit tests and builds run. In my team, unit tests are under responsibility of developers, since it doesn't affect the functionality. So I could check build runs. To create test coverage, we have to understand how could I check it. I can run build, and if it's successful, so the ticket is passed. If it's not successful, at least I would have the log with the exceptions for run build. Or I can skip all testing here for now, because in this particular case, in reality, we had not only one or two tickets, but bunch of such tickets. And for this very moment, we prefer to skip checks and postpone them till the regular release checks were done. So we skip test for now, but have in mind that if we have any errors regarding the tool, we have a person whom we could address the problems. And anyway, we revise the ticket after regular release checks. So seems the score is 3-0 in favor of QA team, and we are the winner. I hope that this example shows that in most of cases we don't need to do full regression tests for the whole product, just to check one refactoring ticket. Analysis of refactoring tickets and risk coverage serves the purpose to be effective with less efforts, or at least at less time. And you see that it doesn't require any additional knowledge from you, just ability to read, ask, and understand. So that's it from my side. I'm ready for your questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Kalina. Okay, dear guests, please send your questions in our chat. We're gonna read them, and or any kind of feedback if you have after this presentation. One question was basically to administrative crew, mainly about the recording. Yes, soon you can rewatch this video on this YouTube channel, on our YouTube channel of the Experts team. And we're gonna upload both reports right after the meetup. Okay, and now we have questions to you. Hope you're ready. Okay, and the first question is from Maria. Are there any cases then we have to do full regression testing for refactoring ticket? FRO.
Yeah, as
for refactoring ticket. Sorry, it's a typo in the question. Yeah, I hope you got it.
I got the question. Yeah. As I told, Usually we don't have to do the whole regression for the whole product. Of course, we have such cases, but it's really rare cases when we, for example, have some component refactored and work of this component is involved of work of another components. Yes, in this case, we use our risk assessments and we check that which zones were affected, and if in case we see that most of the areas or most of the components of the product um, could be affected. In this case, regression tests are inevitable, but I still think that we have to define and make the number of tests smaller, just to reduce the time for testing this ticket. But yes, of course, we have such kind of such kind of cases, but it's rare cases. I hope
Okay.
that's full answer.
All right. Thanks, Palina. And the second question is from the user with the name Falso. How often do you face a situation then step one with context clarification could be skipped for the refactory tickets, and when it happens?
Good question. But I think that anyway, we have to dive into the topic of refactoring ticket. It depends on the size of the project. If you have a real small project and with simple functionality, and everyone in the team is a master of the functionality and architecture of the application, yeah, in this case, I suppose we could do this. But I've never seen such simple applications. Usually we have really normal product with sophisticated architecture. So we could refactor any areas of this application, and for each of cases we have to go deeper in the topic. You could skip it if you have a bunch of the same tickets with the same functionality or the same area, and you work on these tickets, I don't know, for example, during the release or maybe 2-3 releases, and you just focus on one topic, it could be skipped. But usually in real life, um, it's needed.
Okay, thank you. And more question. There is a question from Dennis, one of our guests. How I, like an QA engineer, how I can assess risks without having more detailed information from the developer?
That's why risk assessment on the step, the second step, not on the first, because we have this first step to gather all information according to risks as well. So we clarify all these affected zones and risks for our product. We gather all this info to make this assessment.
I hope there is
I
the
hope.
answer. Yeah. Anyway, guys, if you have more questions, you can send them in the chat. Polina stays with us, and even after the next report, we can jump in and comment on something. And for now, there is no other questions. Thank you very much for your presentation. And you would like to add something?
I just also want to say thank you for for this chance to speak with you, and I hope this discussion helps you in your everyday work. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And also, one of our uh, um, listeners have a follow-up question to you. The one that asked about how often do you face with the situation then step one would be skipped. The second question from him or her. Thanks for the answer. One more from me. Which step is the most time consuming? Thank you in advance for the answer. In your opinion.
In my opinion, as now I'm working with team who produce only refactoring tickets, I think this the first step that you would like to skip, this the most time-consuming step. Again, because we usually we change areas, and in each area you have to have the whole information about the feature or functionality to check this in correct way. So I think, yeah, the first step, don't skip it.
Sorry to tell. Okay, thanks anyway for your presentation. One more time, I'm happy that you're here with us. And let me then switch the microphone and give it to our second guest, Anastasia Maslova. And I just want to tell for all of you, if you would like to be a part of dxTechTalk in future, you can contact us and become a speaker with us. And today we have Anastasia, a QA engineer from SEMrush company. And we are very proud that you're with us, very happy to have you here. And tonight, Anastasia will tell us the report named Writing Integration Tests Without Missing a Thing. I hope you're ready. You're calmed down. How are you? How is your mood?
Of course, I'm feeling great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, nice. Where are you now?
I'm in Barcelona. I'm in Barcelona, and it's usually so sunny and so hot here, but today it's raining. It's a good thing for us. Yeah, just to have rest from the heat, but I might say that this is some special day, you know.
Nice day to spend it watching and talking about QA.
Exactly.
QA presentations. Okay, so I suppose we could start. Dear guest, please send your questions in the chat. We will have time to answer them. And yes, stage is yours, Anastasia. Good luck.
Thank you very much. Just one more thing. So today I want to talk about writing integration tests without missing a thing. It's quite an ambitious task to complete, I must say, but let's see whether it's possible. First of all, I'd like to say a few words about myself. I've been working in testing for 5 years. I've been working with web, mobile, and desktop applications. I write automated tests, mostly in Java, but I have some experience in Kotlin. Feel free to reach out to me in LinkedIn. We can discuss testing and other QA questions. So I have worked in different companies, but there is something in common between all of these different places. Wherever you work, you will face integration testing, and this may be challenging. Today, I'd like to talk about these challenges and actually about the joy of integration testing, why it might be challenging. The project you're working on might have complicated architecture, and you might depend on other teams and projects that you are not familiar with, and you don't have to be. Usually, our goal is to test our own application, not any other, efficiently and effectively. So let's challenge ourselves today. With all that in mind, we'll use, as an example, an authorization system that consists of a few components that, of course, communicate with each other, and they communicate with an external service. We will write an integration test for this system. And after that, we will answer a question: what is missing? We will analyze all the components and add even more automated tests. And even after that, we will have a few questions to answer, like how do we avoid unnecessary work and how to make sure that nothing important is missed. And last but not least, there is a question that usually creates a lot of discussion. Is it possible to automate all the checks? Before we proceed with the most interesting part, in my opinion, which is the authorization systems scheme, there is a few things to say beforehand. Today, we are going to conduct API testing, and our example will be services developed in accordance with the OpenID Connect standard. This one extends OAuth 2.0 protocol. You might have heard about OAuth 2.0. It's quite a well-known name. And you might have not heard of OpenID Connect standard, but I bet you have faced them a lot when you're logging into different services online using some of your account, for example, Google account. Why am I mentioning these names right now here? Just to point out that the scheme that you'll see in a moment is not the work of my imagination. This can be a decent work case. And one more thing, authentication and authorization are not the same, but we are leaving that out of today's conversation. I will use the term authorization only. So with all that in mind, let's start. And as QA engineers, first, we should answer a question: what are we testing? How the system works, what the components are, how they communicate with each other. Are there any external services? So this is the component interaction scheme of our authorization system. And we have a client that wants to get into their personal account in our application. On the web page, our service, they enter login and password. They are sent to our first endpoint, login. What is it for? This one sends these credentials to another endpoint, authorize. It belongs to the authorization server. The authorization server is the crucial part of the whole system. First, it retrieves clients' data about their previous sessions from the database. Also, it sends requests to our another service, which is provider, the endpoint check here. Provider performs client's checks, and it needs even more data about our user. So this one communicates with an external service, which is called the core system here. And of course, this core system has its own database where this additional information is stored. This core system, it's not our responsibility. It's a part of another team works on it, and it's colored gray just to emphasize this fact and to point out that this is kind of gray area for us. But anyway, our task here is to test this integration. So let's start and let's see how an integration test for this system looks like. First of all, we should check the requirements. We should check the request and the response. So let's proceed with that. Here is the request for the first component, which is login, as you remember. It's a post request. And you see here login and password among the parameters. We have another parameter here, which is client ID. This is just a text ID of our service. We might have also a mobile application. It would have its own client ID or another services inside this application. So everything is possible, but for our example, this is fine to use. This one, web application, and I must say that in real life you would have much more parameters here, but for us, these just work fine. It's enough for us today. So what do we expect? We expect to receive 200 OK, and in the body, we are waiting for redirect URL and a few parameters. The first one is code, which expires in 60 seconds, and client ID web application. This authorization code is a very important part of the whole system. It is issued by the authorization server. Later, it will be changed to access tokens, and with these access tokens, our user can log into their personal account. So with all that in mind, when we know all these requirements, let's write an automated test for it. And we actually should add one more thing here. We have a redirect URL, so this redirection should take place. So let's take a look at what we should expect after this redirection. Obviously, our user should get into their personal account. So we are waiting for this URL, this path in location in the headers. And right now, we can finally proceed and write our integration test. We obviously should start with the request to our endpoint login. Here you can use whatever you like, whatever works best, like retrofit, feign, or rest assured. When we got our response, we can proceed with checks. We need to know that we actually got this redirect URL and that there are parameters like our authorization code, which is very important, and some additional parameters like expires in and client ID, which is still web application. Like I mentioned, we should execute this redirection. So after that, we should check that location contains our application's domain or the path to the personal account. We have the first test. We covered only the first component, the first endpoint login. Actually, it's an integration test. We tested the whole flow, actually. But in fact, we don't know what's going on under the hood. We just know that everything was fine. The user was not blocked. There are no any other problems. They can enter their personal account, and that's it. But we need to test other components as well. Let's think how we should do this. We determine first the difference in queries and return parameters that need to be tested and cover all the components with tests. Let's do this, and we will get back to these ideas and see if we could do this in the most efficient way. So again, we're first looking into the request. So this is the request to the second component, the authorization server, endpoint authorize. Again, it's a post request with the same login and password, same client ID, but here is something new. Its response type parameter, which is code. I already mentioned that it's the authorization server that issues an authorization code that later should be changed to access tokens. So we need to tell to our authorization server that we are expecting to receive this code. That's why this is parameters here. We expect here another status, actually 302 found. And again, we are looking into location among the headers, and we need to check that there is this redirect URL, and actually it's the same redirect URL that we've just checked on another level on our first endpoint login. So here, here is a great example of differences and same things you can see on different levels, on different services. And you can see how important it is to check this flow, this authorization flow, for example, at every level, on every component. So we now know how everything works. Let's write a test. Again, we are starting with the request and checking that there is an authorization code in the response and expires in parameter and client ID. We are checking the same parameters here, but in slightly different way. You remember that we have this redirect URL in location in header, so this URL should be parsed, and we are checking that every parameter is in its place. According to our architecture, we have another layer. It's provider, the third component, endpoint check. Again, it's a post request with the same login and password and client ID. Nothing more is added. These parameters are enough. We expect 200 OK again. And here we will look into the body of the response. Here we are receiving some more data about our client, like I mentioned. Our provider sends requests to an internal service in order to get additional information about our client and to perform additional checks. So here's the result, which is additional data. And let's imagine that for us, in this case, it's very important to know that our client's email is verified. So this information is here too. Everything is fine with our client. And we can proceed and write another test for the provider this time. We are starting again with the request and checking the user's data. Obviously, we have prepared test users' data, and here we need to make sure that they are the same, the data that we already have and the data that we've just received from the provider. So we're checking here our user's ID, their name, their phone number, and we should make sure that email is verified. Right now, 3 tests are ready. Let's check how the coverage has changed. We are looking again into our component interaction scheme, and we have all our APIs covered, which is really great. But something is missing, and it may be quite obvious that I'm talking about the core system. The core system, like you already know, is not a part of our authorization system in terms of responsibility. It's not our responsibility. Other teams work on it. But this service is accessed by our component, the provider, which retrieves data. You might think that we don't need to do anything here because it's not our responsibility. But there might be actually a couple of reasons to prepare even more automated tests, this time for this core system. The first reason is our imperfect world, where miscommunication or lack of communication may happen. If another team decides to add some fields, remove some fields, change format of request response, or anything else, you might know about it at the very last moment, which is kind of uncomfortable and it's not safe. Also, this might be even more complicated, and here you can see that this core system is accessed via SOAP. If you haven't worked with SOAP, it's an XML-based protocol to access web services over HTTP. And when I meant that actually the format may be different, I meant this. So actually this external service may have these responses and may have these requests, which are different from everything that we have in our APIs. So tests for the core system actually can help us to localize problems faster. We can just make sure that everything is fine on their side. And actually here you again can see the same data that we just saw in the response from our provider, the same ID, the same email, and this flag verified for an email. But here this data appears as XML. Again, similarities and some differences that need to be tested. So let's wrap it up. What's the solution? Here we can create a separate project of auto tests where we repeat our provider's requests to this core system. And our goal here to make sure that we can localize problems faster in case they appear. It's time to answer another question and summarize a bit what we've just done. How do we avoid unnecessary work and how we make sure that everything is tested? You might think that we need to repeat all scenarios on every level to cover them at all levels. But first thing that we actually need to do is to identify key scenarios and automate them at all levels. Yes. In our case, it's the authorization system. It's a crucial part of any application. So we need to know that everything works fine, but we can avoid complete duplicates because with different types of users, you will have a lot of different scenarios. And we rely on contracts between services and define the levels at which we need to check this or that functionality. So something we covered at all levels and something we can cover just at one or two level. Let's see a small example. If a user is blocked, the core system detects it and returns an error. So the level at what we should check it is our provider, which should return this error as well. My favorite question, is it possible to automate all the checks? Let's try to answer it. In terms of requests and response, there are no problems. We can automate them. We have just done it. But I bet you have a lot of your own examples when you can't automate something, and there are still some manual checks that need to be performed. And here I put some examples like checking information in logs or checking databases, external or internals, how this or that information is stored there, if the status is correct, if some flag is correct. And right now, with all that in mind, let's wrap it up, what we managed to test. We tested the full authorization flow, the contract between our component and the external service, and also we performed some necessary manual checks. Let's take a look at our component interaction scheme one last time. And let's see, it looks very satisfactory. Actually, we can say that it's fully covered. We have tests that cover all our APIs. We have another project with automated tests that cover the core system. And we performed some manual checks, and so we can mark these databases as checked as well. And we can make a short but important conclusion that we performed top-down testing of the authorization system, and the key to success was decomposing the system into parts and understanding how they work, which is the crucial competence for us as QA engineers. That's all from my side. Thank you very much for your attention. Again, feel free to reach out to me in LinkedIn if you have any question, but of course, I'm ready to answer your question right now here.
Thank you, Anastasia. It was a pleasure to hear it. So, dear guest, please send us your questions. And while our colleagues sending to you the questions, let me just address one more technical, more like organizational question from Elizaveta. Can I download the presentation to check it when I run into the similar issue on my job? So usually we do not upload anywhere the presentation itself, but as I said previously, you can use the recording that's going to be hosted here on this YouTube channel, or as an option, you can contact our speakers directly in LinkedIn and exchange files or exchange questions, or like start some communication directly with them. It's kind of solution that I can suggest currently. And we have a first question to you, Anastasia. Let me read it. You mentioned that users receive access tokens. Is there a reason why we are not checking them in these integration tests?
Well spotted. Actually, this is a very important part of this authorization flow, getting access tokens and getting into application. But this process would add a few more request response pairs to our example. So actually, there are more checks to perform. We of course should check the exchange and authorization code to access tokens. I omitted it just to simplify the whole thing, but this is a very important part of the whole flow, so we should check it as well.
Thank you for the answer. The next question is there any sense of making automation tests for internal admin panel, which is in the use only for QA or dev teams?
I haven't seen those kind of tests actually, but I think this maybe this depends on your project. For example, in my experience, I haven't faced this functionality that needed to be tested. What I faced instead, there is some important functionality that this internal admin panel might have, like changing some statuses of clients or any information, if I get this question right. Usually, in a perfect world, but usually these APIs, we as QA engineers, we can use these APIs and we just can access them through another request in our test. So it wouldn't be another test, but this can be a part of our test when we are changing some status.
Okay. Oh, thanks. Can I ask Paulina to come back and switch your camera? I hope you are here. Yes. So we are waiting for more questions, and I noticed one question that perhaps is more related to your talk because it's regarding the refactoring question. So if you don't mind, can I ask you to reply? What do you do when refactoring is done by a new developer and you can't fully trust their answers?
Usually it's normal, typical story because as I told, refactoring could be done for the code that was written many years ago, and anyway, new developer, or maybe even not very new, but he is not the author or he's not so experienced in this topic. So I usually gather all possible info from all possible sources. So it gives me confidential in the information on what I based in my further tests. So it's not only one developer who did the refactoring. It's also could be more mature developers. It could be sometimes project manager, because sometimes they are really brilliant. Business analysts, all sources, and of course you could also check documentation. You could check, as I told, Epic's pull request and all chains of tickets. So you have to work and gather all possible info.
Thank you. Thank you for this like unexpected additional question. And I also can see a lot of gratitude to both our speakers and to Anastasia and to Paulina. Thank you very much. It was very informative, interesting. I'm very happy that we made it all together. I will be happy to have you one more time here as a speakers in our project. So consider it opportunity, and also encourage your friends or colleagues to join us. We will be happy to host more events with different speakers, different experiences. Subscribe, follow us, and like wait for new additions. For now, I suppose we can finish. If you want to add something or want to tell something, it's time. Or we can say goodbye.
I would like only repeat thank you for this chance, and thank you for conversation. Thank you for questions. Thanks.
Thank you, dear visitors.
I also would like to say thank you very much for having me today. This was very interesting.
Well, thank you, girls. Thank you, colleagues. See you next time. Have a good rest of the day, and the week ahead.
See you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.